My younger brother was being reckless again, trying to mess with Dad's motorcycle brakes. I tried to stop him, and instead, I got the beating of a lifetime. Nearly died from it too. Later I studied like my life depended on it just to escape that hellhole of a family. But they found me, again and again. Dragged me back to the countryside, and married me off to a mentally disabled man. I was tortured to death. And now, I've opened my eyes. Back on the very day my brother first tried to tamper with Dad's brakes. You worthless girl, can't even cook rice right. The whole place smells like a salt factory. Trying to poison me, huh? A voice exploded in my ears, followed by a hard kick to my back. I stumbled, crashing to the floor, and my eyes flew open. I was back in that godforsaken house. The one where the chimney smoked up the place every time it rained, where the roof leaked, and where the walls peeled like skin. He did it on purpose. He doesn't want to cook for us. Dad, Mom, hit him, kill him. That little brat, my 7-year-old brother Tyler, was banging his spoon on his bowl with glee, egging them on. I froze. My eyes darted to the calendar on the wall. I'd come back. 10 years. I was 10 years old again. You stupid girl, do your ears even work? Mom yanked me up by my ear. Look what you've done. The kitchen's full of smoke, and you didn't even think to open a damn window? Dad grabbed the broom from beside the stove. I dodged before it could land. The food's almost done. It's still cooking. I shouted. You lazy brat, always dragging your feet. Dad swung and missed, waving the broom as a warning. Don't make me starve because of you. Sweetie, come here. Look what I got you at the market. Your favorite honey-roasted duck. Mom's face lit up as she placed the steaming dish on the table. Tyler dropped his chopsticks and grabbed the duck leg, tearing into it like a starving beast. Through the haze of smoke, I looked at the three of them at the table. My back still throbbed, my ear burned, and the pain told me this was real. All of it. My parents had always hated me. From shoes full of holes to a second helping of food, everything I did warranted either verbal abuse or a beating. I spent 10 years trying to be good, walking on eggshells just to stay alive. Then they had my brother. And that's when I learned my parents could smile. They could speak softly. They could love, just not me. They hugged him, kissed him, held him like glass, fed him like royalty, and gave me more reasons to be beaten. He cried? My fault. He peed his pants? My fault. He fell, didn't eat, had a tantrum? Always my fault. They needed an outlet, and I was it. Back then, I thought maybe I really was just a bad kid. So I tried harder to please them. Until one day I overheard someone telling my parents, "Your daughter's getting older. Maybe you should treat her better. One day she won't even recognize you." And my father had scoffed, "So what? Girls are just money pits. When she gets married, she's someone else's problem. Why bother?" He kissed my brother again and again while Mom muttered, "Can't stand the sight of her. Ugly and useless." Then Dad added, "Plenty of people don't care about girls. It's not just me. She can't do anything anyway. We're her parents. If she dares talk back, I'll break her damn legs." That day, my teacher had just lectured on gender discrimination. I finally understood why he always told me to read, to study, to leave and see the world beyond. So I studied like hell, thinking education would set me free. But I was wrong. They always found me, pulled me back, crushed me. So now, if I can't escape, then let's all burn together. Chapter 2, Let Him Ride into the Storm. At dinner, Tyler smugly boasted about how he and a couple of boys from school had beaten up an older kid so badly the kid didn't even dare come back to school. Dad beamed with pride. "That's my boy. You get bullied, you hit back. Don't be afraid of anything. I've got your back always." But what really happened? Tyler had been extorting a classmate, and when the kid stared at him the wrong way, Tyler lost it and attacked him. In my past life, I'd tried to tell the truth. I thought Dad should discipline him. But instead, I got a brutal beating for framing my brother. This time, I stayed quiet, and even poured my dad an extra cup of liquor. He narrowed his eyes at me, smirking. "Look at that. You're finally learning some manners." I didn't say a word. I just smiled. Every afternoon, Dad had this routine: drink a bit at lunch, nap for an hour, then ride his motorbike into town to play mahjong. I used to worry about him drinking and riding. But now? Now I hoped he'd drink more. After lunch, Dad and Mom went to nap, Tyler went out to play with his buddies, and I returned to my little shed out back, the one I'd built beside the chicken coop. I was still thinking through my next steps when I heard giggling in the yard. Peering through the crack in the door, I saw Tyler and 2 boys sneak over to Dad's motorcycle. And then I remembered, this was the day. In my last life, Tyler had seen something on TV and didn't believe bad brakes could cause fatal accidents. So he messed with Dad's motorcycle brakes. I'd seen him doing it. I called him a moron. He fought me, I fought back, and I pinned him to the ground. But then he screamed for our parents and twisted the story, said I was the one trying to sabotage the brakes. Dad didn't even ask questions. Just came at me with open palms. The force of those slaps damaged my ear permanently. And then Mom joined in, hitting me with a thick wooden pole until my leg was crippled for months. This time I didn't interfere. I let them mess with the brakes, watched as Dad hopped on his bike and rode off. Soon after, the skies darkened. A drizzle began, then thick sheets of rain fell from the heavens. I silently wished him a smooth journey. My heart was pounding, but I didn't show it. I started making dinner and heating water for their nightly foot soak. Mom stomped out of her room, kicking a stool hard. She was pissed. Trying to calm her down, I said gently, maybe call Mrs. Simmons or Mrs. Doyle. You always play cards with them. Maybe Dad went to eat at their place? Her face twisted. Oh, now you're an expert on my business, huh? Mrs. Simmons was a widow. Mrs. Doyle had a reputation for being very available. Dad had flirted with both of them over the years, and even though Mom never caught him red-handed, she despised them. Suggesting she call them was like pouring gasoline on a fire. Still, she couldn't get a hold of Dad, and she didn't know where he'd gone. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. "Watch your brother," she barked, then stormed off on her bike into the rain. I took a deep breath. I figured I'd study a bit more while I waited for news. At first, I thought the 10-year gap would make the schoolwork hard. But surprisingly, my brain remembered everything. It was like my body had muscle memory for studying. Maybe it was all those years I spent tutoring others in my last life. Now, things that once confused me felt easy. Maybe, just maybe, this was life giving me a second chance. A chance to do better. To make it out. I studied through the night. As dawn broke, the roosters crowed, and dogs barked through the village. Then came the banging. Jean Carter, open up. Something terrible's happened. I cracked the door open and saw old Mr. Lewis from up the hill, soaked to the bone and panting hard. "What happened, Mr. Lewis?" I asked. His eyes narrowed when he saw me. "Let me in, girl." But I didn't move. "Dad's not home. If it's important, I'll get my Uncle David." Uncle David wasn't far. He was the accountant at the grain depot in town and well respected in the village. He was also one of the few people in my life who'd ever truly been kind to me. "David's back?" Mr. Lewis hesitated. "He comes home every weekend," I lied, trying to bluff. Mr. Lewis backed off a little, then muttered, "Tell him your mom got into a fight with Mrs. Simmons and her son. He needs to get over there. Fast." He turned to leave, then suddenly paused and asked, "Wait, where's your dad? He went out yesterday and hasn't come back." I replied casually, "He went to play cards in town." And then I shut the door in his face. In my past life, Mr. Lewis had been the one who arranged for me to be sold to the mentally disabled brothers in the next village. He was a creep, always groping the young girls in town, even in front of my dad. When I tried to pull away, Dad scolded me, called me dirty-minded for thinking anything of it. "He's just being friendly," Dad had said. "You really think someone like you could tempt anyone?" Later, Mr. Lewis was caught molesting a girl with intellectual disabilities, and my uncle was the one who had him arrested. Ever since then, he'd been terrified of Uncle David. So when Mr. Lewis said my mom had fought with Mrs. Simmons and her son, I figured Mom had been searching all night and assumed Dad was with Mrs. Simmons, only to end up attacking the wrong people. Still, knowing her, even if she was wrong, she'd stir up enough trouble that nobody could stop her. And I was right. She accused the wrong person, but still managed to turn the whole village against Mrs. Simmons. Chapter 3, A Father's Death, A Daughter's Smile. After the fight, Mrs. Simmons called the police. But since both parties had gotten physical, and they all lived in the same small village, The officers gave everyone a verbal warning and let them go. That was when a second patrol car pulled up. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, asking, "Which way to the Carter residence?" Mom, still glowing from her verbal takedown of Mrs. Simmons, froze. "What's going on?" she asked as she hurried over. "What happened to Gene Carter?" "You're his wife?" one of the officers asked. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Yeah, that's his wife." That's when I noticed it. The look on the officer's face. Grim, heavy, full of sympathy. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. A male body was found down by Hollow Creek. "After positive ID, we believe it's your husband, Gene Carter. We need you to come confirm." Mom shrieked like a banshee. "No, that's impossible. He just went to play cards yesterday. You're lying. Is this some sick joke? You all working with that slut Simmons to trick me?" She lunged at the officers, completely hysterical. They had to physically restrain her. Eventually, she collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood beside her, eyes welling up. I even pinched my thigh to make myself cry. "Officer, how could this happen to my dad?" I choked out. A female officer gently approached me. "It appears the brakes failed on his motorcycle. He lost control coming down Swallow Hill, went over the cliff. The storm washed his body downstream. He was found at Hollow Creek." When the officer mentioned the brakes, Tyler, my little brother, flinched violently. I glanced back at him. His face turned white, and he collapsed on the floor. Mom, panicked, scooped him up. She slapped me hard. "What the hell is wrong with you? You scared your brother to death?" I didn't respond. I just quietly followed the officers to the site. When I saw Dad's mangled body, covered by a white sheet, a strange mix of feelings rushed through me. Relief, satisfaction, a cold, bitter kind of justice, and something else. A quiet, aching sadness. Because no matter how much I hated him, he was still my father. Mom was useless. Just a crying mess. I had to handle all the funeral arrangements with Uncle David's help. Afterward, Uncle David took me aside. "Focus on your studies. Don't let this throw you off track." He gave me a rare smile. "Your teachers say you've been doing really well. If you keep it up, you'll definitely get into a decent college, maybe even a top-tier one. From now on, it's all on you." I nodded, though my mind flashed back to my last life. I did take the college entrance exam, but my parents had no intention of letting me actually go. They only let me leave because I promised to send them $1,000 every year while I was in school, and to hand over all my future earnings. Even after Dad died, Mom was no better. She was the one who reported me missing when I tried to disappear. She kept me from getting any stable job, terrified I'd escape her grasp. I ended up working dishwashing jobs under fake names, doing manual labor on construction sites, just to survive and save up to get away. In the end, she accused me of prostitution, got the cops involved, and drugged me, selling me off to a pair of mentally disabled men in the neighboring village. She even came to see me once. I was chained up in a pigsty. She grinned at me like a villain in a horror movie. "Now let's see you run, you little bitch." That look in her eyes, the gloating, the cruelty, still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. She would never let me go to college. Hell, she might not even let me take the entrance exam this time. So, I made a decision. I dropped to my knees in front of Uncle David. "Please," I whispered, "I need your help." Chapter 4, Sold Off Like Cattle. Late May. One weekend, I returned home like usual. But as soon as I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. Strangers, men and women, were sitting around the house. The one that caught my eye stood by the main doorway, a man in his 30s, shorter than me, scanning me from head to toe like I was livestock. A woman in her 40s walked up with a forced smile, grabbing my arm and spinning me around like she was inspecting a purchase. "See?" she said to the man. "Didn't I tell you?" "She's tall." Another older woman chimed in with a frown. "She's too skinny. How's a girl like that gonna bear children?" The first woman snapped, "This is how all the good ones look nowadays. Young, clean, untouched. You want a proper wife or not? She's got brains too," she added quickly. "My niece has top grades. Your son's kids would be geniuses." That's when Mom walked out of the back room, smiling as she handed out glasses of water. My blood ran cold. I hadn't guessed wrong. She really was trying to sell me. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, voice trembling. She gripped my hand tight, afraid I'd bolt. "This is your future husband's family." Mrs. Liu introduced us. "They've got a 2-story house, a car, everything. You'll be living the good life, sweetie. I already worked out the details." She shoved me toward the man. I staggered but managed to sidestep him, forcing a terrified smile. "I don't want to get married. I'm taking the college entrance exam next month. I'm going to college." Mom chased me down and yanked me back by the arm. "You're old enough to get married. You think I'm gonna feed you forever? Your dad's dead, we've got nothing. How are we supposed to pay for college, huh?" She raised her hand to slap me again. I was crying, backing away, when Uncle David suddenly arrived, this time with the village head in tow. "Mary Carter," Uncle David snapped. "She's not even 18, and you're trying to marry her off? Are you insane?" "I'm her mother. You think I'd hurt her?" Mom shouted back, glaring at him. I broke down. "You already did. You took money from them. You're selling me." She shouted right back. "And why the hell not? I raised you, fed you. You think that was free?" The village chief pointed at the man. "That's Jackie Zhang, right? Divorced twice. Claimed his ex-wives were infertile, but both of them had kids with their next husbands." He stared hard at Jackie. "You ever get yourself checked out?" Jackie's face turned red. "What's it to you?" "And let's not forget," the chief continued, "you're pushing 35, same age as her dead father. That's disgusting." The man and his mom stormed out, muttering curses as they left. "Every decent parent gives their daughter a proper education," the village chief said, turning back to Mom. "You're just trying to cash her out." "She's not getting married," Uncle David added firmly. "Her grades are good. She's going to college." He turned to me. "Don't worry. When you started high school, we signed an agreement. I'd pay for everything and give your parents 5,000 yuan a year in support. If they back out now, they have to return all the money. When I was a kid, my parents didn't want to send me to school at all. It took pressure from the village and Uncle David's threats about government enforcement to make them comply with the 9-year education mandate. Once I got into high school in the county, they wanted me to quit again. Uncle David stepped in, said he'd pay all the costs and still give them money. That's the only reason they let me go. Luckily, I did well. The school waived my fees and even gave me scholarships every year. After I begged Uncle David for help again, he promised to take me into his care before the entrance exams. Turns out, he had heard rumors that Mom had arranged for a suitor to come look me over. That's why he rushed over with the village chief. Mom, realizing she'd lost the battle, dropped to the floor and started wailing. "They're bullying me. They're ganging up on me. I'm a widow, and they're trying to take my daughter away." Her sobbing was so loud, it drew the neighbors. The chief wasn't having it. He told Uncle David to take me away, unless Mom wanted to cough up every penny. With no other choice, she glared daggers at us as we left together. Just as we were leaving the village, I spotted Tyler and some boys harassing a little girl. I asked Uncle David to wait. I walked over to Tyler and quietly said, "I saw you messing with Dad's brakes. You killed him. Has he come to visit you at night yet?" Tyler's face drained of color. Then he passed out, right into a rice paddy. Chapter 5, a funeral, a favor, and a knife to the gut. 2 days later, I heard that Tyler had fallen seriously ill. He was delirious with fever, rambling nonsense in his sleep. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I swear. The fever lasted for over 2 weeks. Then the seizures started. The same epilepsy we didn't discover until years later in my last life had shown up early this time. Mom spent a fortune getting him treated, and had no time or energy left to deal with me. Thanks to Tyler's illness, I was finally able to study in peace. I crammed hard for more than 2 weeks, and by the time the college entrance exams rolled around, I was more than ready. After the test, I came home to grab a few things. Mom was out fetching water. The moment she saw me, she slammed the ladle down and stormed over, reaching for my ear like old times. "Well, look who finally decided to come back." I quickly said, "Mom, I heard about Tyler being sick. I figured our family must be struggling, so I went out and found a job. I already got my first paycheck and brought it back for you." I pulled out a thick wad of bills. Her eyes lit up. She snatched the money, counted it fast, and grinned. 2,000? Not bad. Then she narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "You're not hiding anything else, are you?" No, that's all of it. Swear to God, I said, holding up my hands. Still, she patted me down. What kind of job pays you this much right off the bat? You didn't do something dirty, did you? I plastered on my most innocent face. Of course not. But if you're worried, you can come with me tomorrow and check the place out. You could even help me ask for a raise, or ask for the next month's wages in advance. That got her attention. Now you're talking sense, she muttered. At least you're showing some gratitude. Then her tone turned sharp. So what happened to your big dream, huh? Weren't you gonna go to college and become somebody? Changed your tune already? I kept my head down and let her gloat. I knew her type. She wouldn't be satisfied unless she thought I'd been defeated. As expected, she kept badgering me with sarcastic jabs until someone came knocking. It was Mr. Lewis. She shooed me outside to cut some grass while she and Lewis went inside to talk for a suspiciously long time. As night began to fall, Mr. Lewis finally left, and I was still sitting on the edge of the field. He spotted me and sauntered over. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said, leering. "Your mom's found someone for you. 2 brothers, real nice boys, strong, honest. Little quiet, sure, but that's just nerves. Their mom's a widow, though, can only afford to marry off one of them." He got closer, eyes roaming. "A delicate girl like you. Maybe you should get used to the idea. Let Uncle help you warm up to the role, huh?" His hand reached out toward me, but instead of my skin, he felt something cold and sharp press against his stomach. He looked down to see the gleaming edge of a sickle. "What do you think, Uncle?" I said sweetly. "If I stabbed you and said you tried to rape me, who do you think the village would believe, me or the creep?" I gave the blade a little push, slicing through his shirt. He stumbled backward in terror and tumbled down the hill, scrambling to get away. A few days later he returned, but the moment he saw me he flinched like a beaten dog. Wouldn't even look me in the eye. I figured he was afraid I'd tell the village the truth about how Dad really died, that it had been Tyler's doing. But even though he avoided me, I caught him stealing glances laced with resentment. That night, I overheard him talking to Mom. I hate her. Just seeing her makes me sick. Can't even eat. Mom lowered her voice. "Don't worry, I can't stand her either. We'll sell her soon. I'll save the money for you, baby. So when we find you a wife, we'll have something to offer. You're the best, Mom." The next day, sure enough, she followed me to town. On the way, she was already planning how to ask for more money from my employer, including advance pay for the next 2 months. After the college entrance exams, I wanted to find work to cover my future expenses. My homeroom teacher had connected me with an old friend who ran a restaurant in town and needed help. The woman took one look at me, asked about my family, and quickly offered me the job. She even agreed to let me borrow 1 month's pay up front. But when Mom showed up, saw the restaurant was run by a single mom with a kid, she decided the woman was weak and easy to exploit. She demanded an extra 5,000 yuan a month. The owner kicked us both out. As we walked away, Mom grinned smugly. "Still walked away with 2,000, didn't I?" She dragged me along, saying she'd found a better job, easier and better paying. Next thing I knew, I was standing in a grimy alley face to face with the infamous Mrs. Zhao and her 2 mentally disabled sons. She was already eyeing me like fresh meat. Mom strutted over like they were old friends, laughing and joking, even accepting bottled water from her like it was nothing. I knew what this was. Mom had wasted no time. She was selling me, today. So I played along. I took a few sips of the water in front of Mrs. Zhao, then clutched my stomach dramatically. "Mom," I whimpered. "I need to use the bathroom." She waved me off. "You always gotta pee. Go, but be quick. Don't keep Mrs. Zhao waiting." I was sure she was hoping I'd leave so she could negotiate a higher price behind my back. Mrs. Zhao barked to her eldest son, "Take her, stay close, make sure nobody bothers her." He nodded like a robot and followed me to the public toilet. The town's bathroom required a small fee. The old man collecting coins stopped the big guy at the entrance, and while they argued, I slipped inside and forced myself to vomit up the water. Outside, a commotion broke out. Women were yelling about a pervert trying to follow girls into the restroom. The big guy was getting beat up. Good. I hadn't forgotten. Behind one of the bathroom stalls was a paper-covered window. Perfect escape route. I was already halfway up when I heard him burst into the restroom. Pervert. I screamed. More people rushed in. He got beat to a pulp. Meanwhile, I slipped away and ran back to the restaurant. I apologized profusely to the owner and offered to tutor her elementary school son for free to make up for the trouble. She relented and let me stay, but only if I promised never to let my mother interfere with her business again. I agreed, gratefully. Later that night, I heard Mrs. Zhao had stormed the streets, screaming curses at the women who'd beaten her son. When she learned I had escaped, she nearly had a stroke. She and Mom searched high and low but couldn't find me. Eventually, they left town, empty-handed. I didn't care what happened to Mom. She was finally reaping what she sowed. Chapter 6: Secrets, Scars, and Second Chances. Word spread fast in the village. My mom had run off with a man. After that, no one saw her again. With Mom gone and no one else to rely on, Tyler had to go live with our grandma. Grandma always favored him, of course, her precious little grandson. For 10 years, she'd looked down on me like I was a cursed thing, but now she had her golden boy back. Too bad Grandma herself was a bitter old woman, impossible to live with. She'd alienated my aunt and Mom long ago, and after Grandpa died, no one wanted anything to do with her. She now lived alone in an old house on the far side of the mountain. As for Uncle David, he had a strained relationship with Grandma. When he was younger, she forced him to break up with his first love, which led to the woman's tragic death. He never forgave her. Never married either. Still, he took care of her when he had to, but only out of duty, never affection. Time flew, and soon the day came to check college entrance exam results. I scored 626, 2 points higher than I'd predicted. It was the highest score I could have achieved, and I was proud of it. Uncle David and my teacher were ecstatic. The restaurant owner, the one who took me in, cooked a full celebration dinner. At the table, Uncle David looked at me, serious and proud. "Don't worry about tuition," he said. "I've saved enough. Just go and live your life." Tears welled up in my eyes as I dropped to my knees. "Thank you, Uncle. Thank you for everything." In my past life, I did get into college. But between tuition, giving my parents a yearly allowance, and them sabotaging every job I tried to take, I was barely scraping by. Uncle David had stepped in to help then, too. He paid off debts, stood up for me, even tried to stop my parents when they falsely accused me of prostitution and had me arrested. He died from a brain hemorrhage during one of those confrontations. Later, I learned my parents had delayed his hospital transfer, hoping to claim his savings after he died. So in this life, I swore 2 things. 1. I would make everyone who hurt me pay. 2. I would repay Uncle David 1,000-fold. By August, I returned home to get my paperwork done, and found that Grandma had moved into our old house. She refused to let me inside. "You're a jinx," she spat. "You don't belong here." Uncle David eventually paid her 3,000 yuan just to get my household registration booklet back. At the local office, I ran into another girl, about my age, applying for a disability certificate. Then it hit me. She was the same girl Mr. Lewis had molested in my past life. People used to say she was slow, not quite right in the head, but in my last life, after her family lost track of her during an outing, she was raped by Mr. Lewis. They forced her to marry him afterward. Now, looking at her pudgy cheeks and gentle eyes, something inside me snapped. While Uncle David finished the paperwork, I found her sitting under a tree, watching ants. I knelt beside her and whispered, "If anyone tries to pull off your clothes, hit them. Hit them hard. Kill them if you have to." She blinked at me. "Will they take my food away if I fight back?" I swallowed. "Yes. And they'll beat you. And you'll suffer, a lot. That's why you have to fight, okay?" She nodded slowly, eyes wide with fear. I stayed with her a while, making sure she understood. Later that day, Uncle David handed me all my documents and sighed. "You're so smart. Why do you still want to apply for student loans? I told you, I've got enough saved." "I'm an adult now, Uncle," I said. "I want to take responsibility for my own life. I don't want to burden you anymore." He looked at me long and hard, then smiled. Uncle David worked at a failing grain and oil factory. His salary wasn't much, but he always did whatever he could for me. I couldn't keep leeching off him, no matter how much he offered. Government policy was good. I believed I'd pay off those loans soon enough. Eventually, I was accepted into a top-tier university in a neighboring province. Uncle David took me there himself. Before we left, the restaurant owner, the one who'd become like a mother to me, gave me a thick red envelope. "You can't tutor my son for free," she said. "This is your pay, no arguments." She had a loud mouth and a sharp tongue, but she treated me like family. She bought me new underwear when mine didn't fit, made porridge when I was sick, and even took me to the hospital once. She gave me something I'd never known, a mother's warmth. Chapter 7. Deaths, Truths, and Ghosts in the Water. That winter, during my sophomore year of college, I got news from back home. Tyler was dead. Apparently, over the past 6 months, his seizures had worsened. Grandma, stubborn and poor, refused to take him to the hospital. She tried folk remedies, spiritual healers, swamp water, superstitions. They had worked before, but not this time. One night, Tyler had a particularly violent episode. He never woke up. By the time they got him to a hospital, he was already gone. No heartbeat. People in the village whispered that Grandma killed him. Others said Dad had come back to haunt him. There had been rumors that the real reason Dad's motorcycle crashed wasn't just brake failure, it was sabotage, that Tyler had cut the brake line. And Dad, Grandma's favorite, had died because of it. So maybe people said Dad came back for revenge. Maybe he took Tyler with him. Of course, no one really knew the truth, except for me. I'd slipped a little cash to Tyler's 2 friends and told them to tell their parents the truth. Let the rumors do the rest. In the second semester of my sophomore year, another message came from the village. Mr. Lewis was dead, smashed in the head with a brick, killed by none other than the slow girl he used to harass. The same one I'd warned under the tree. They said he tried again, cornered her on a quiet path, hands already reaching. But she fought back. Hard. She found a brick, struck once, twice, smashed his skull until it caved in. They said she kept going even after he stopped moving. But because of her mental health issues, the authorities let it go. No charges were filed, and the village? No one mourned Mr. Lewis. In fact, many young girls finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was known for being grabby. Now he was gone. Good riddance. When I graduated, I was accepted into the graduate program at the same university. Before the new semester, I returned to the restaurant in the county, my part-time home, and visited the woman I now called Aunt Lisa. In the past few years, her business had grown. She now owned an upscale restaurant downtown. Uncle David worked for her, handling the accounting after the grain factory shut down. On the ride home, she turned to me out of nowhere and asked, "So, what do you think of me?" I blinked. "You're a wonderful woman." She smiled. Later that year, I came back again, to attend their wedding. Yes, Aunt Lisa and Uncle David had fallen in love. It was the first wedding I'd ever cried tears of joy at. But just as their story blossomed, another rumor darkened the village. A massacre in Zhao Creek. A widow and her 2 mentally disabled sons had been slaughtered in one night by the very girl they had bought to be their bride. She died on the run shortly after. Too many wounds, too much blood. The only thing people knew about her was that she was mute, her face horribly scarred. They said Mrs. Zhao had cut out her tongue because she talked dirty, that she'd poured hot oil on the girl's face for trying to fight back. No one knew the girl's real name, her age, where she was from. No one cared. Because Zhao Creek and Carter Hollow were just one hill apart, and Mrs. Zhao had always made sure her secrets stayed buried. As for my mom, last anyone saw, she was living with the Zhao family. Whether she died in that massacre or barely survived, no one could say. But knowing her, she'd survive somehow. She always did. The kind of person who could sell her own daughter for a quick buck doesn't die easily. But even if she survived, she'd be scarred, tongueless, unrecognizable. Let her rot in that hell she created. As for the Zhaos, they got what they deserved. Every last one of them. Chapter 8. A New Name, A New Life. After Uncle David and Aunt Lisa's wedding, I returned to campus and dove into grad school. Time passed quickly. When I completed my master's, I went straight into a PhD program. Thanks to everything I'd lived through in my past life, I knew which industries were about to take off. I made a few well-timed investments. Before I knew it, I'd achieved financial freedom. No more begging for scraps. No more living in fear of my family. No more pretending to be someone else just to survive. I was finally free. In August, I returned to town to take care of some official paperwork, only to find that Grandma had taken over our old house. She refused to let me in. "You cursed child," she spat. "You don't belong here." Eventually, Uncle David had to pay her 3,000 yuan to get my household registration documents. At the village committee office, I ran into a familiar face, the mentally challenged girl who had killed Mr. Lewis. She was there applying for a disability certificate. Seeing her again, so small and wide-eyed, I felt a pang in my chest. That girl had been passed around like a stray dog her whole life, mocked, abused, preyed upon, and yet, in this life, she'd fought back. She'd survived. I smiled at her and wished her well. While Uncle David filled out my forms, I pulled the girl aside and whispered, "Never let anyone hurt you again. Ever?" She looked up at me and nodded hard, eyes wide with understanding. Uncle David later asked me, "Why do you still want to apply for student loans? I told you, I've got enough saved." "I'm an adult now, Uncle," I told him. "I want to stand on my own." Even though he insisted he didn't mind, I knew better. He was only a former accountant from a defunct grain mill. His pay had never been great. Just because someone is willing to carry you doesn't mean you should let them break their back doing it. Besides, student loans weren't a problem. I had every confidence I'd pay them off quickly. When I got into a prestigious 985 university in another province, Uncle David personally took me there. Before I left, Aunt Lisa gave me a thick red envelope. "This is your tutoring pay," she said firmly. "Don't argue." She'd become like a second mother to me. She bought me clothes when I had none, cared for me when I was sick, and stood up for me when my own mother wouldn't. For the first time in my life, I knew what a mother's love felt like. That winter, my aunt called with a shocking update. "Tyler's dead." He'd had another seizure. Grandma had tried all her old tricks, superstitions, river water, even calling a local witch doctor, but nothing worked. One night, he just never woke up. Some said it was divine punishment. Others whispered that Dad had come back for revenge. Some even said Grandma let him die. On purpose. But me? I knew better. I'd made sure the truth trickled out, slow and steady. Enough to poison the village well with doubt. Let the ghosts do the rest. By my junior year of college, another scandal rocked the village. Mr. Lewis had been beaten to death with a brick. The culprit? That same slow girl from the office. She'd fought back. She'd survived. She was a hero, even if no one said it out loud. I finished grad school, then got my doctorate. My investments paid off big time. I didn't just survive, I thrived. Later, I even found my birth parents. Yes. Turns out I wasn't the Carter's biological daughter. Back when I was born, my real parents had taken me to the hospital. While they slept in the same maternity ward as my parents, Gene Carter, my supposed father, stole me from the next bed over. He had a condition called oligospermia. He couldn't have children of his own, so he faked a pregnancy with my mother and stole not one, but two babies, me and Tyler. My biological parents never stopped searching for me. When they finally tracked down Gene Carter's old medical records, everything fell into place. They even bought out the hospital where I was taken. They handed me the DNA test results themselves. My real mother hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "My sweet girl," she cried. 20 years. We finally found you. Everything we have is yours now. Their assets? Worth billions." For a moment, I just stood there frozen. Then I nodded hard, smiling through my tears. "Yes, Mom. I'm home." The end.